Hi. So just let me enter the participants. We have still 1 minute left. So right now we have only two participants with us. No, actually more. Can you hear me? So hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to the ISPP Ask Us Anything webinar. I am Kuhu Chauhan. I head the admissions and outreach at ISPP. And me, along with my team, is here to answer all your queries regarding admissions, placements, life at ISPP. So we have Mr. Dhruva Mathur, who is the Assistant Director for Executive Education at ISPP. We have Ms. Urvashi Shahi, who's heading our training and placement at ISPP. Then we have Ms. Deeksha Agarwal, who's taking care of the program advisory role at ISPP. So I welcome you all. Thank you for taking out the time and being with us. So I'll just start with a brief introduction about ISPP, and then we'll venture into more about the courses, about the written assessments, about the placements, and all your queries. So ISPP was founded in 2018 by a group of very passionate individuals who wanted to include public in the field of public policy making. So our chairperson, Mr. Louis Miranda, our dean, Mr. Parth Shah, came together, sharing a common vision of creating next-gen policy leaders for a rising India by training and nurturing the future leaders in the field of public policy design and management. So today, ISPP is achieving that goal through its various short-term and full-term courses. The main focus of today's webinar would be just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. I think we have more entrance to the webinar. Okay. So to the people who has just joined us, so I was just giving a very brief introduction of ISPP, its history, and how ISPP is achieving its goals through its various short-term and full-term courses. And today we would be focusing on the full-term course, that is the postgraduate program in public policy design and management. If you have any queries in between, you can always put it in the chat box and we will definitely answer all your queries. Now I would like Mr. Dhruva to please give a brief about the PDM course and structure to us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kuhu. So the way the program has been designed is the idea is to emphasize the need for public policy in a polity. Now, why is public policy really needed? I'll give you an example that actually happened. And you can guess which where this happened. So there is a national lottery that takes place every year, and people apply for lotteries all the time, so everybody applies. Turns out the president of the country wins the lottery. This is year one where this happens. The president wins the lottery.
Yeah.
Then there's a lottery in another year, the next year, and again people apply. This time again the president wins the lottery. Guess where has this happened? Any guesses?
You tell us.
This is Zimbabwe, and this is a true story. Robert Mugabe won the national lottery as president twice. No, so that's public policy, right? When you're creating a system where it's supposed to be fair and just, everybody should have an equal chance of winning that lottery. Individuals in position of power often enjoy unfair advantage to do it, right? And that's the logic behind our program, where we want to democratize public policy. We want people in the country to be aware of to be aware of ideals of public policy. So the ideals that form the core of our program, we like to list them as SPELL. S stands for skills. So when you're looking at public policy, there are certain things you really need to know. So for example, you really need to know how to work with, say, Excel or data, right? That's a skill set. So S is for skills. Then the P in the SPELL stands for political economy. Any policy issue cannot be separated from its political economic consequences, right? So for example, a lot of you all would be aware of the farmers' law that were introduced last year or the year before that, right? And there were huge protests about it, right? Now, a lot of economists said that those were good laws. There were also economists who said that it could have been better, right? But why did that law did not pass? Because if everybody was saying it's a good law, then it should have logically passed, right? That's the political economy angle, right? Where you have to understand the politics of scenarios. And that's the P in our academic philosophy. The E stands for ethics. And let me pose another question, right? So imagine you're a lawyer now, and you see, or rather, you're a citizen. You are walking on the road. You see a murder happening. What do you do about that? There's a murder. What do you do?
I'll try to stop the murder. That would be my first instinct.
Sure, but the murder has happened. What do you do now?
Take the victim to the nearest hospital.
Right, and you'll also work with the police to get the culprit arrested.
Yes, that would, I think that is the second thought in my head.
Right. So that's the ethical thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, for example, Urvashi here, who will be discussing career, she is a lawyer, right? Now imagine you're that lawyer, you see that murder happen, and the murderer comes to you and tells you, can you be my lawyer? What do you do then? Can you still go to the police and say, well, this guy committed murder? You possibly cannot, right? Because professional ethics kick into place, right? So that's the difference between this personal ethics and this professional ethics. In public policy, the two often tend to get mixed. So then how do you work with them? That's the other focus. The first L in SPELL stands for leadership. Often when we discuss leadership, we tend to think that, leadership is, people are saying something, we will do that, right? That's leadership. We'll follow the group, so to say, right? But doesn't real leadership really lie in you firmly believe in something? And even if everybody else is opposed to it, you try to convince them that that's the right path to go for, right? That's the other leadership. You'll get these learnings on leadership with our Antrang Leadership Lab, where you'll have preeminent experts coming, discussing how do you work in a professional setting, how do you work in cross-cultural settings, how do you take and receive feedback, for instance, how do you give effective presentations. So this will be the focus in our leadership lab. The last L stands for lifelong learning, which is, even once you graduate from the program, you're our alum. So you'll always have access to expert faculty members and to even, the sessions that are happening in the campus as events and so on. In fact, Urvashi, as the head of Alumni Council, runs this wonderful initiative called the Learning Circle, where we call in preeminent experts for the alums to share their experiences with. And it's a closed group setting, so it's only alums who are invited to it, and it's really senior profiles that come in, right? So that's the other exclusive network that you get access to. Now, broadly, the way the curriculum has been structured is that there'll be 5 terms. The list of courses, if you've gone through the brochure, you'll have the list of courses easily available. But the focus here is on 2 critical elements for sure. One is, of course, understanding the economics and politics of situations, but also truly being able to understand how do you design a policy, right? Because when you're looking at a policy angle, you have to consider all the stakeholders. So example, if I'm designing the farm laws, right, I will look at what is its impact on the farmers. I will look at what is its impact on allied sectors. I will look at what is its impact on the consumer. So there are different stakeholders that you have to consider. That's design thinking, where you put yourself in the shoes of the affected party and you try to figure out policies accordingly. Another key focus aspect of our program has been behavior change, where, and again, I'll share a wonderful example that actually happened. This is set in the United Kingdom. This is 2000s UK, and they're having a massive problem with tax evasion. And so what the UK does is that they issue tax notices, right? Like we all get tax notices. So they issue tax notices. They added one single line in that tax notice?
Hmm.
And any guesses, what was that line that they added?
I'm curious though.
Well, the line that they added in that tax notice was that in your neighborhood, you're the highest taxpayer, or in your neighborhood, you're the lowest taxpayer. Right?
Okay.
Suddenly, it became a prestige issue. Nobody wants to be the lowest taxpayer, right? Everybody wants to be the highest taxpayer in the neighborhood. And the tax revenue actually went up. That's the behavior change element. And the wonderful thing about the ISPP curriculum is that while you're attending these classes, you're attending all of these guest lectures that keep happening, right? You get actually an opportunity to implement all of this. Right? So, for instance, you'll have something called the Policy Praxis Lab, where you'll be solving real life challenges, current issues, and you'll be applying the theory that you're studying in the classroom into, into those policy issues, right? Similarly, another wonderful thing that Uroshi would be I'm sure discussing would be the internships that you get access to, right, in the fifth term. And that's also another fantastic way for you to be able to actually apply your knowledge with real companies. And Urvashi will tell you more, but we've had wonderful cases where people have worked with fast food chains, right, on public policy issues. They've gone and worked on with think tanks, and they've then gone and worked with academic institutions. This is one person who's been able to do this, right? So that's the breadth of opportunities that you get. So you've got the opportunity to work with the corporate sector. You've got the opportunity to work with a think tank body, right? And you've also got the opportunity to work in academia. And a number of graduates from our program also, of course, do end up pursuing a PhD after the program. And we've had students who ended up joining Georgia Tech University in their PhDs, American University and for their PhD, and so on. And a number of our scholars have also gone on to join the University of Chicago for their master's program. In fact, we have a wonderful tie-up with the University of Chicago, where there are two elements. The first element is that while you're enrolled in the program, you actually get to learn from professors from the University of Chicago. So there'll be 10 lectures that we'll organize with professors from the University of Chicago. You attend all of those lectures, you do all the assignments that are due. At the end of the program, not only will you get a certificate from ISPP, you'll also get another credential from the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. So you end up graduating with essentially two certificates, so to say, right? So that's the beauty of the program. The other beauty of the program is that our alumni and scholars are eligible for the Chesta Kocher Scholarship. That allows you to go on and study for a master's program at the Harris School of Public Policy. This scholarship is only open for ISPP alums. So this is also another wonderful opportunity for those who are interested in pursuing further studies. So with that, I will let it be and hand it over to Kuhu again.
Thank you, Dhruva, for explaining the PTM course in great detail and with such interesting examples. So now I think the basic question that we have received is regarding the written assessment that forms the second stage of our shortlisting process. So for everybody's information, I would like to tell that this year we have introduced ISPP Policy Aptitude Index that would comprise basically that would comprise of a written assessment and followed by a personal interview that would be judging students, assessing students on 5 core parameters, which we have identified as 5 C's. A, commitment. B, the competency. C, critical thinking. D, camaraderie. And E, your character. So these 5 C's became the core parameter or evaluating students for the Policy Aptitude Index. The test would be conducted on 1st of February, Saturday, 2025. Then it would be followed by an interview session in the later half of the Saturday. And depending on the availability of the interview panelists, we would be conducting the remaining interviews for the Sunday. So all the candidates would receive email regarding all the details for the written assessment and the interview, because we have been receiving a lot of queries on calls also, and I think on the chat also. So that would be taken care of. So you will be shortly receiving emails about your written assessment, the framework of the assessment. Since we are on that topic, I'll briefly touch on the framework of the assessment. So the written assessment would be an adaptive written assessment which would have two parts. The part A would include your English, which would basically, the module would judge you or assess you on basic competencies like comprehension, verbal English, spoken English. Then we would have logical reasoning, followed by a quantitative test. Part B would be assessing the personality traits of an individual on selected competencies that would form the OPQ assessment. Competencies naming, adhering to your personal objectives and goals. How do you respond to change? How do you work with your colleagues? How do you take pressure? How do you cope up with pressure? With the changing norms? Because I think for a public policy professional, all these things come together to actually all these competencies form an integral part of any public policy professional. So that is why we have introduced this new thing to our assessment test, that is the OPQ assessment. So I think there is somebody who has asked a question here. So somebody wants to understand the difference between the PDM and Master's Public Policy course. So Dhruva, would you like to answer that for us?
Sure. The difference is essentially a legal one, so to say, right? Where if you look at it in terms of the number of courses or the number of credit hours that you would do in a master's program versus at ISPP, it's the same. However, as per regulations, in order to be a master's program, you need to be a 2-year program. What we have done is, because a lot of our students like to get into the job market very quickly, we've reduced the program length to 1 year. We've not reduced the number of courses and credits. The number of courses and the hours of teaching is the same. And so essentially what you get is, at the end of the program, you've studied 2 years worth of public policy in a single year. You've also got an additional credential from the Harris School of Public Policy. So that's the difference there. So that's why we call it a postgraduate certificate program in public policy design and management, because it's a 1-year program. If it were a 2-year program, then we would have gone, of course, for masters. But again, a lot of our scholars tend to prefer getting into the job market as soon as possible. And so therefore, we've retained it as a 1-year program.
Perfect. Thank you, Dhruva, for answering that for us. And now I would like to introduce Urvashi, if she can, take us through the training and placement cycle at ISPP.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Kuhu. And so nice to meet all the 12 participants that are here for the webinar. So I basically head Office of Career Services, and as OCS, we start working with you immediately as you join the course. So from August itself, we work very closely with you. I'll quickly take you through what our career journey looks like and training looks like, and then how the placement and the internship cycle looks like. So from the month of August, when you start the course, we start with one-on-one interactions with every scholar to understand their individual career aspirations. We are very sure as to target the right kind of organizations which fit the aspirations of our scholars. In past 5 years, we've got very diverse profiles. So we've got people who are freshers, who had UPSC experience. Then we've got scholars up to 13 years of experience in the same cohort. And because of such kind of diversity, the aspirations itself are very different. So for that, we have very targeted career approach, and we do one-on-one counseling with them from the beginning itself. Another thing which we do for our scholars to understand the length and breadth of public policy space are TN policy sessions, wherein we call industry experts across Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar, who come and speak to a scholar. And these are very closed door candid conversations. It's like they telling you inside story of their organizations, how a day looks like, also their challenges, how do you make a career in that particular organization or similar organizations, and what are exit opportunities, how your long-term career would look like. So any kind of questions, they're very open, because again, these are non-recorded conversations. It's very closed door discussion. So the kind of access you get to these personalities is something that's very unique to our program. Other than that, I also had alumni engagement. So something which we also do is call a lot of our alumni to speak with our scholars. In fact, just this month itself, we had an alumni roundtable wherein four of our alumni representing different sectors came and spoke to our current cohort, taking them through their experience. They're all coming from different backgrounds. Some are from engineering, some are from policy background, some are from social science background, some are from arts, we've got architects, and then they're doing so well in their career in public policy across different organizations, all in Samaj Sarkar Bazaar. So when they share their experience with our scholars, I mean, it's a different learning thing altogether. So that's something which we also do, and again, it's a very open discussion wherein sometimes even the team is not part of those discussions, so that it can be very open. In addition to that, we also have guest lecture series. So just yesterday, we had Montek Singh Ahluwalia at our campus addressing our scholars. So we get these very top profile people who will, talk from a different angle altogether. And then they're able to show you that larger picture of what all you can achieve in public policy. So all of this becomes part of the awareness building series and counseling series. Other than that, we also have a dedicated career advisory council. So we've got industry experts who are part of our advisory councils. They're constantly available for our scholars. Plus, we have industry mentors. Every scholar has been associated to an industry mentor, and they guide them throughout the course. So these are like initiatives for whatever help you need. You connect with your industry mentor. And these are all people heading, policy heads of different organizations. These are people who've already made name in public policy space. Now, this usually is done from August to close to September and October, wherein we start with our profile building training. So in profile building, we have a very specific lab called Professional Development Lab. We have an external facilitator, which is Neil Sodhi, and she takes a lot of our training sessions, which include CV building session, which include LinkedIn profiling session. Then there are sessions on mock interviews, there are sessions on salary negotiations. So it's like end to end. How do you do your elevator pitches? How do you introduce yourself? So from soft skill training to technical training in terms of guesstimates, in terms of how do you address case interviews. So we've got different people who are taking these sessions for us. We've got very senior person from KPMG taking our case interview session at ISPP. So basically from September to December, our target is to train our scholars on both soft skill plus technical skills. In addition to that, we also want their basic documents to be ready, which include their resume, their cover letter, their portfolios. Portfolios include basically their written statements, their policy memo, their policy reports, so that once the placement cycle starts, which actually starts by November itself, but it comes to full swing by January. By that time, they should have their portfolios ready, and it's easier for them to apply. This year we started in November itself, and we got few of our scholars placed in November. Now also we have organizations that have lined up. So generally, just taking you through placement cycle, it's the placement cycle in like ISPP is on a rolling basis. It's from November to July, and we reach out to organizations from August itself, but the processes at earliest are started by November and can go up to July. Most of the processes you'll see happening between January to June. That's a peak period for placements. Other than that, just coming back on industry engagement front, in order to train our scholars and give them more experiential learning, we get projects from the organization for our scholars, which is called immersive learning engagement. So basically, we reach out to organizations and the current projects that they are working on. Our scholars get a chance to be part of that. This is in addition to the academics. So basically, our scholars are dedicating close to 10 to 12 hours per week working with an external organization. And the idea is to give them hands-on training and a chance to apply their academic learning while working with it and getting mentored by an organization. So that's something which is very unique to us. Other than that, we've got a dedicated internship period also. So
Okay.
May to July is our dedicated internship. It's 2.5-month internship period. So the idea is sometimes at close to 30% of our batch is kind of early career batch. So just to give them more experiential learning, and also for scholars who have had work experience but want to pivot into policy space, so give them that experiential learning so that it's easier for them. I mean, that's the kind of training which we do.
Wonderful. Urvashi, I just wanted to touch base on two specific topics that you mentioned, which I really find interesting, I think, and that would be very informative for our audience as well. For the immersive learning projects that our students do, if you can throw some light, like what kind of organizations are coming, if you can just give us an example of a project that current student might be doing or we have done in the past, so that our audience would have a better understanding of how we actually, train them for, with a hands-on experience.
Well, I mean, giving the project details would be slightly difficult because sometimes we sign NOCs because these are running projects. But I'll quickly tell you the names of the organizations.
Yeah.
So, for example, there have been projects with We Communicate, which is an advocacy firm, and then there are projects with APCO Worldwide, Chase India, CEW on again doing advocacy work, campaigning work. There have been projects wherein our scholars have worked with Ministry of Health as well. Just that the details of the project become slightly confidential because
Of course,
they have
I understand that.
But these are the kind of opportunities. So it's across sectors. So we've got projects with government like Ministry of Health. Then there are projects with corporates like Boston Renewable, Abbott, and then there are projects with consulting firms as well. Plus, think tanks and industry associations form part of our major recruiters as well. So again, there's been a very close connect with these organizations, and a lot of them do engage our scholars in the projects they work on. In fact, very quickly, I'd like to share about one of the project because the report was already published, so I can share the details.
Okay.
There's a Association of Public Affairs Professionals called PAFI. It's Public Affairs Professionals of India. I think it's one of the largest association of public affairs professionals in India. And our scholars work very closely with them on a research project where they were developing KRAs and KPIs of policy professionals, just to cut out the uncertainty in the sector as to what should be their KRA KPI, how should their role look like, and how can they quantify it. So they actually worked and they were part, and they released a report with PAFI. So there was an entire team of scholars who worked on that. So that was one of the ILE project that they did. So yeah, so similar projects with different industries in food sector, in health, in environment, across sector they've been. You can, I mean, if anybody wants, they can check the details on our website also. There's a career report and it does highlight the kind of organization that have come for ILEs.
So I would request our audience, so if they can go and look at it, so you'll have a better understanding of it. And one more point, Urvashi, I would like to touch base upon is when you mentioned that we had an alumni panel and how our current cohort is actually benefiting from our alumni. And to that note, I would also like to mention to our audience that because of that, because we feel that alumni becomes a core part of any institute, and engagement with alumni, not in terms of at an institutional level, but yes, with the current cohort, with the cohorts that have passed, it becomes very important for both, I think, for the alumni also, and for the current candidate also, for the current scholar also, to get in touch and understand the nitty-gritties of public policy, to say. And for that particular reason, in this cycle, what we are trying to do is introduce alumni to our interview panel as well, so that they are the, I think, apart from the faculty who is so experienced and have reached a certain stage in their professional cycle, so they'll have somebody who maybe has just passed or have a 5 or 10 years of experience. 10 though is too much of an experience, but yes, who's recently passed, maybe 2-3 batches ahead of us. And how they're working in the industry, and that alumni base would be from different sectors, not specifically from public policy, as you said, from engineering, from architecture, from law, and how they're excelling in public policy domain. So I think that would be really beneficial for our students when
Yeah.
they get, when they first interact with them during the interview panel itself. And as you said, later on when they enroll for the course, there are certain stages, there are so many interactions with alumni, be it a roundtable with alumni, or they're coming to the institute to have a TN policy sessions with our audience. So I think it becomes very interesting and informative for everybody, and you get a chance to understand ISPP better. Who better would tell you than the people who has passed away from ISPP?
Yeah, yeah. No, very right. Actually, one interesting point is also, Kuhu, when we look at the trajectory of our alumni, and something which we've seen and something which we've observed about policy space and careers in public policy, is that it's not a very linear progression. It's mostly like it's very easy to switch roles across different kind of organizations and sectors. So we've seen alumni started as a fellow, gone to World Bank project, and now is doing gone for higher education abroad, got Commonwealth scholarship, so funded opportunity abroad. So then it's, if we look at most of our alumni, they're coming from very different backgrounds. So they've been one of the alumni in the founding batch, was a chartered accountant. Currently, he's the in public policy team heading a very senior position at BOAT. So he's part of that team. But earlier, he joined an industry association, switched role, entered into another corporate, and now is in BOAT working in public policy team. So when we look at their career trajectories, it's very interesting, and I think public policy space that way who is really emerging in India. When we started ISPP, like our founding year, honestly, it was slightly difficult to find JDs wherein you'll have public policy mentioned as qualification. But now things have changed, and the kind and the way public policy is picking up, I mean, it's unimaginable, honestly speaking, the pace at which it's picking up. So I strongly believe that this is the right time to be in this space. And uh, I mean, anybody who closely follows the space would be able to see that difference, that change that has happened in the last decade itself. And we are very hopeful that even in the future, this space would pick up. So yeah.
I think there is somebody, Anmol, please, wants to say something. Anmol, I would request you to please put your query in the chat box, and we'll definitely give you a chance, definitely answer your query. In the meantime, Urvashi, you correctly pointed that public policy domain is now changing at a very fast pace, as you mentioned, and the people who are included in this particular, who are involved in public policy at a very close level, will be able to tell us that yes, it is growing at such a fast pace, right? So here I would like to ask Dhruva, because I think he's been closely associated with public policy for so many years. So I heard Urvashi's side, that how has it changed in terms of career and placement from difficulty in finding a JD to now organizations coming to us to enroll, to take policy professionals from us. So Dhruva, if you could tell your experience, how do you think public policy domain has evolved over the years?
Sure, absolutely. So I would say I feel like Urvashi is understating the problem, because I remember being in conversations where Urvashi was like, "We have got so many JDs. I don't have enough, students to send to those JDs and places." So that's the kind of thing. And the way it's evolved is that 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the easiest metric to understand it is if you look at LinkedIn postings, right? LinkedIn job postings on policy issues 6 years ago, the requirements were you should have an MBA, you should have a master's in economics, and stuff like that. Now you look up any of these public policy job postings, right? In 99% of the cases, the first thing is a master of public policy, right? And that's just it's across the board. You look at PwC, you look at KPMG, and these are consulting firms. You look at some of the other corporates, it's the same case there, right? I think increasingly also as given the global dynamics as situations become increasingly complicated, there will be a greater need for companies to have dedicated resources who understand how do you navigate the regulatory framework, right? And so I think there's tremendous scope for further expansion, in fact. And I feel we've barely, touched the tip of the iceberg, and there's a whole iceberg left to explore for us.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
just if I could get a
Yeah.
chance to add to Dhruva, I think
Yeah.
ISPP honestly has played a huge role in making this change happen, because we've done a lot of awareness sessions with the industry as well. So if you look, I mean, we've done so many roundtables wherein we call people from the industry, and also, so it's two-way process. So we make our scholars aware by calling people from the industry, but we also make industry aware by having discussions with them and making them understand the value proposition of a policy professional. So in making that change happen, wherein earlier these government consulting roles were taken by MBAs, now we see that there is a shift towards requirement of policy professionals, and I think that institutes like us have really played a huge role in making that change happen there.
I agree to that. Completely agree to that. So I think we have few queries here. So let's touch base with a few queries that we have received. So we have a query from Rituraj Banerjee, which says that I don't have a background in statistics or economics. Does that make a big difference in the quantitative or logical reasoning entrance test? I think, Rituraj, I would like to answer that question for you. If you do not have a background in statistics or economics, I do not think, and it would make a difference when you take the written assessment, because a written assessment is gives us an insight into the basic aptitude of an individual. We are not judging you or assessing you on core statistical and economical skills that we would be expecting that you learn here, and learn here and hone those skills here. We are expecting a basic knowledge set from you, and that is what the aptitude test would cover in terms of both quantitative and also logical reasoning. Yes, Dhruva, you have to say something?
Sure, I would just add to you and say in simplistic terms,
Yeah.
addition, multiplication, subtraction, division karna aata hai. That's it, really, because the logic behind the test is to understand, can you work with numbers? That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. As long as you understand basic quant, as long as you can understand, a comprehension passage, a paragraph, things like that, you're perfectly fine.
Thank you, Dhruva. Thank you so much. And we have one more question that is from Anmolpreet Bhatia. Hi, it would be really great if we could touch base upon the application process of companies that come to hire scholars. Is it the usual process with aptitude test, case interviews, and more, or it is different when hiring from an institute? I think, Urvashi, you would be the right person to answer that for us.
Anmolpreet, I think it's mixed. So with certain organization, it's like similar process of written assignment, case interviews, aptitude tests. They also do cultural fitment tests these days. So generally these are the processes, but with certain organizations, it's just one round of interview. So depending on the kind of organization. So if we look at policy space broadly, we have corporates, we've got consulting firms, we've got fellowships, we've got NGOs, we've got foundations, then there are think tanks, and then there are government related entities. So that's broadly if we categorize the organization. So in this, if you look at private sector corporate consulting firms, the process is slightly simpler in terms of lesser stages. Fellowships have very standard process, but sometimes with government related entities, the process can be slightly longer. In it can take close to 1.5 months to complete the process. Hence, this is also the reason that we start our placement cycle early on. So as I mentioned, that our placement cycle starts from November itself. But otherwise, we ensure that we do prepare our scholars in all the round for whatever rounds that are there for interviews, be it guesstimates, be it case study round, be it written assignment round. So I think Dhruva would be able to tell, but we've got very specific labs which train our scholars. So for example, we've got writing and communication lab for all policy writing skills, and in most of these rounds, these are the only skills that are assessed. So, Dhruva, would you like to touch upon the labs quickly?
Absolutely. So, as Uroshi mentioned, the writing and communication lab, right? So, in any policy role, you're going to work with three stakeholders, so to say. So that's why you need three particular skill sets in writing and communication. The first is you're going to write proper research papers for experts. So that's one set of writing skills that we'll cover. The other is that you write that research paper. You want the actual decision makers, the politicians or the bureaucrats, to be able to read that. So you need to be able to convert that research paper into a policy memo, which is a shorter document, crisp and to the point. Now, that research paper should also be something which is available to the public, the citizens of the country, to be able to read and form an opinion. So you need to also be able to convert that research paper into an article that can be published in a newspaper. So these are the three core writing skills that any policy role will require, which we cover. The second is critical thinking. You've got a separate course that happens in critical thinking. And as I mentioned earlier, you've got something called the Policy Praxis Lab. So all the case study scenarios, for example, right, where you're given a problem to solve, you will be working with a senior faculty member in a classroom setting and trying to solve your way through it, right? So that's number one there. The third lab which is on offer is the Antrang Leadership Lab. Now, within the Antrang Leadership Lab, as I mentioned earlier, there are certain leadership skill sets that you would want to develop in your career as you grow. So, for instance, being able to give and receive feedback, being able to work with different stakeholders, being able to communicate effectively in a presentation. These are the kind of skill sets that you will be working with you in the Antrang Leadership Lab. So overall, what you've got is the labs give you a 360-degree coverage of the skill sets that you really need. Your core skill set is communication, your leadership personality skill set, your critical thinking skill set. Right? These are the three skill sets you need. Those are the three skill sets which get covered in the program.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you, Dhruva. So we have somebody who really wants to understand about the financial assistantship that we provide for the PDM course. So I would request Deeksha, if you can, if you can throw some light on the financial assistantship that we provide at ISPP.
Yes, sure. So ISPP is a democratic institution, and by that we mean that we want people from across different, economic backgrounds to be able to pursue higher studies in public policy. We offer need-based scholarships, and as you proceed with the application form, there'll be a section which will ask you if you're seeking financial aid, which we call graduate assistantship. And you will just be required to submit a few relevant documents. If you are working, we would require you to submit IT returns of last 3 years of your parents, if you have siblings. And once you submit all the relevant documents that are part of the application form, a neutral committee will evaluate your profile. They will come up with an adjusted, income band, and then accordingly decide the amount of scholarships they would be willing to offer you. So if you think you need financial aid, you should apply for graduate assistantship. And a lot of scholars here are on financial aid, so do apply for financial aid. And the decisions regarding financial aid and your whether or not you've been selected for the program will come simultaneously, so you can take an informed decision and see if it suits you. Yeah.
Thank you, Deeksha.
Thank you.
And I think we have one more question from Jyoti. That would be, the written test and interview will happen on the same day. Yes, Jyoti, that is the plan, that interview and the written assessment would happen on the same day. So the written assessment would happen on 1st of February, Saturday. Timings would be from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And in the second half, we will have the interviews. And we'll have to see the availability of our interview panelists and the remaining students who have applied for the post PDM program, that is the postgraduate program in public policy design and management. The few of those candidates would be asked to appear for the interview on Sunday. So it would be Saturday second half for the interviews and the entirety of the Sunday for the interviews. I hope this suffices your question, Jyoti. And we have one more question from Navya. would it be possible for you to kindly share information on the average and highest salary packages offered to graduates across all sectors? Urvashi, again, back to you.
So as I mentioned that our cohort has been very diverse in terms of the kind of experience. So it would be very difficult to give you the pinpoint the exact average, because that would differ based on your prior experience. But I'll give you the broad range. So the broad range has been from 6 to 19 LPA for our placements. So it depending on the kind of organization. But honestly speaking, and that's something which we tell our scholars also, that while applying to any organization, you have to look at a longer trajectory. So, for example, think tanks, if you want to go into core research role, you need to join think tanks. And with think tanks, they generally, like, their paying standard initially is not as competitive as private sector, corporate, and consulting. But the exit opportunities, and if you want to go for higher education abroad, that's the only route. So you need to look at the longer run. But then on the other hand, there are organizations, there are corporates, consulting firms that pay really well, close to 17, 18 LPA per year. So that's broadly the range. But again, it depends on your prior experience. How are you able to pitch your candidate? So there are many factors that do come into play, and also the category of organization that you are applying to. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Urvashi. I think, Navya, that should suffice your curiosity about the package. So I would request all the audience, if you have any further queries for us, we have the last 15 minutes of the webinar. So if you can just post your queries so that the panel, all of us can answer your queries. In the meantime, I just wanted to touch base on one important thing about the PDM course, and I think, Dhruva, you will be able to help me here. In terms of when we say about the spell, how you specifically explain spell and how it is imbibed into the ISPP culture, and how are we, somehow it is correlating with the 5 C's that we have identified for our current cohort, and specifically for the entirety of the ISPP. So if you can help me here a little bit in correlating those 5 C's with the spell framework that we have at ISPP.
Sure, absolutely. So let's go one by one, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me the first C, and
so that would be commitment.
Right. So when you're looking at public policy, right, spells work. The L in leadership really is about being committed to 2 particular things as our focus is on. One is, of course, to being a critical thinker, that is, and being an ethical thinker at that. And the second is to being committed to the science of public policy that we are teaching at ISPP. So as much as I believe that, and this is a crude example, as much as I believe that having lots of Kit Kats and milkshake is something that I enjoy, but the science very clearly tells me that it increases cholesterol, it increases diabetes. So maybe a sugar tax is useful, right? And so that's the science of it. So that's the commitment aspect, where as a leader, you need to be committed to the science of public policy and to critical thinking.
Of course. So let's come to the next C. That would be your competency. Competency and critical thinking, I'll take it together.
Sure, absolutely.
The 2 C's, I like to take them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so, yeah. And the other thing I would add to that is an important aspect of that competency is also that, you can be a great thinker about things. But you will be a poor policymaker if you do not have the skill set, which is being able to, for example, work with data, or, for example, being able to communicate it, which is also a skill set. And simultaneously, if you are not aware of the political, economic, and social context in which a situation is based, right? That's the second, that's the P, which is political economy. So that's where the competency comes in. That's the So it's that skills, and political economy is where we are covering for your competency.
Thank you, Dhruva. And now let's touch base with the last two C's. That would be the camaraderie and the character.
Sure. Now, camaraderie and character, I will club it with the two, with ethics and leadership and lifelong learning.
Yes, even I was thinking of the same.
Right. I mean, if you want to, and a lot of our scholars, even from people who graduated in 2020, they're still very good friends. They're still helping each other out. One of the things that we've noticed is that the guys who often end up being the politest people, for example, right, or the kindest people in general, and ethical at that, often are people who, in my opinion, and I'm sure there is, of course, the competency angle comes in, but they're the easiest to place, right? And
Oh.
that comes across in the interviews. That's my understanding. Urvashi will have more data on that. And similarly, we've got camaraderie and character, right?
Yeah.
And character is that ethics, right? Where you have to
Yes.
maintain a tight balance between your personal ethics and professional ethics. So there will
Yes.
be in a policy role that you all are aspiring towards. I can guarantee you that every day possibly you will be in a conflict where your personal ethics tell you very clearly something is right and your professional ethics require you to do something else. You have to be able to maintain balance, and that's the training that we'll provide you through the policy praxis lab, through the immersive learning programs that we offer, where you'll be actually put into those situations. You'll always be mentored, right? So in the policy praxis lab, you've got a senior faculty working with you. And when it comes to careers, you've of course got Neil Sodhi, but you've also got a mentor who's working with you as well. And you've got the Office of Career Services, you've got Urvashi. You'll also have a dedicated resource working with you regularly. So there are people here to mentor you, to guide you. And what I'll promise is that you'll have lots of questions and lots of doubts and queries and everything, right? When you join the program, we won't answer those queries or doubts, but we'll show you how to find the answer, right? So that's our job. We'll train you in that.
Thank you, Dhruva. That was very beautifully explained. I think we have one more question here, and that's from Anmol Preet. Can you please share the status of results by when it will be out, asking in order to prepare for the written assessment? Okay, Anmol Preet, I understand all the applicants have been waiting for the result, and by tomorrow you will have the result out and you will receive your emails of shortlisting. So don't worry, you will get your results for the next stage, that is the PAI, by tomorrow. So I think, Anmol Preet, now that would suffice your question for, when the results would be out. So I think we'll share the details with you by tomorrow. Okay, I missed one question. That would be Rituraj Banerjee. So what are the residential arrangements on campus? Are hostel or room facilities provided? Okay. Then could you share details about the placement conversion rate at ISPP? Is there only one session per year? Okay, Rituraj. So let's start with point 3. Yes, there is one session per year. The session starts in July. We take the session starts at the last Monday of the July. That is how it's been. So it would be one session per year. Then it would be, what are the residential arrangements on campus? Are hostels or room facilities provided? I'll answer that. So there are no residential arrangements on the campus, but yes, there are students. We have a very diverse cohort coming from different states and cities, and we can definitely, our team and myself can definitely help you identify the best and the safest of accommodations that has been used by alumni, so that's trusted, and we can share those details with you, and you can figure out the best possible accommodation that suits you. Then we have, could you share details about the placement conversion rate at ISPP? I think, Urvashi, this would be directed to you.
Yeah, but I don't quite understand what is the meaning of conversion rate, but if it's like placement general rate, so we've got a very good placement record from our first year itself, even though our first 2 years were slightly difficult because they were the COVID years as well. But we were able to place the entire cohort. And I mean, if you look at you can look at the profiles of our alumni on LinkedIn itself. Go to ISPP page and you'll see where all our alumni are working in. So I feel that we've got great placement record. It has been close to 100% for all eligible placement scholars. It's just that the catch is also that you need to be up to mark in your academics, and there's a criteria to be eligible for placements. But if you've put in effort, honestly speaking, not getting the right organization would never be a problem at ISPP. It's just that you also need to put in equal effort. So it's 50-50 efforts from both ends.
I think you summed it up very nicely, that the entire cohort has been placed, and all our alumni are working at the very reputed organizations at good designations. So I think I would request all our applicants also to visit the website and look at our alumni and how they are performing, how their professional trajectory is growing, and you can have a idea from that. So just let me quickly check if I have missed any questions. I really do not want to miss any of the questions if we have here. Okay, so I think we have covered almost all the questions, and we are bang on, we are on time.
Almost all questions means there is a question that's missed.
Almost all questions. So I think from my end and from the audience we have covered all the questions. But yes, Dhruva, since you said that, I'm pretty sure you have a question in mind. So please throw it on.
So I just wanted to understand. So my question is, when should I be applying in order to be able to sit for the test on the 1st? Is there a certain deadline by which I should apply?
Yes. So the deadline for the course for this particular cycle is 23rd of January. So we are sitting on 22nd today. So tomorrow would be the last date. So I would request anybody who wants to apply and sit for the examination on 1st of February to apply by tomorrow, because we are closing the applications tomorrow. So please hurry and get yourself enrolled. So I think we have covered all the questions, and I would like to thank everybody from audience, from the team, Deeksha, Urvashi, Dhruva, to be a part of the webinar and to actually help everybody understand ISPP, the PTM course, the placement and training, and answering all the questions candidly. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, team. Thank you, audience, for being a part of this webinar. And hopefully we'll see you very soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.